Bitcoin dropped just over 16% again from the high here that we had on inauguration day, and we come back below the lower Bollinger Band right here. We tagged our 100 period. I talked about that possibility, but I told you I thought this low would hold. We're getting this big rally right now. As I'm making the video, Bitcoin's up even more, 4.27%. Moving again just beyond our 100 period and our 78.6 Fibonacci, and we talked about that possibility as well. We'll be watching what the close looks like for Bitcoin. It's going back up right now, filling the gap there on IBIT. Bitcoin's moving to the 10 and 20 as they're getting a bearish cross. So there might be more volatility. We might have this low hold, but we might get a higher low or the possibility of going just a little bit lower. This is the 89,000 area, the low 89,000 area. We hit that, what was it, the 91,000 area. Sometimes there's a couple of tests, like over here, we had a low right here. We tested it again. Sometimes there's multiple tests. You had it over here. We'll be watching to see what happens here. Even at the highs, you tested it here, and then you tested it again, moving slightly higher. We'll be looking to see if this low is tested, and if so, does it get a higher low or a lower low? And then be watching. By the end of the session, you know, supposedly Trump and Trudeau are going to have another meeting here, and if by the end of the session there's no concessions out of Trudeau and Trump keeps the tariffs in place, and we could sell off and get a doji or something or whatever, and still, you know, test this low. But again, the bottom I told you I've been looking for, I think it's carving out here. Maybe the bottom's in today, or maybe we test that low. But again, I told you I was looking for this sell off, and it's now happened. Nailing it, just absolutely nailing it. Also at the VWAP support level again, I told you to be watching these levels to come back and test the January low. This helped me predict the January bottom. Again, coming back and testing these VWAP levels and horizontal support zone. This is now resistance. We have to be able to clear that in order to resume the advance. This lower high and this higher high that had set up over here above 108, 108,000. We hit 109. That's now the resistance zone. This peak up here and then the peak here. That with our lower high that's set up there with the DeepSeek gap fill in the IBIT ETF, and this lower high here on Bitcoin. So these are the levels that have just been absolutely nailing it. But we'll be watching the close, and again, trend signals had tried to turn bearish, now turning back to bullish. I talked about going into the lower into the cloud here. Still may come back into this level if there's more volatility surrounding the tariffs. But like I said, I'm looking for a higher low and then for the advance to resume, and then going to 115, 117, and then that's the next level of resistance. We clear that, then you're going up to that 120, 125,000 area, or maybe just over 125,000 if we take our time reaching that level. Got to be able to clear this level of resistance that I've talked about. We tried to get above it and we failed, and then our lower high we turned down off of it. So again, looking for momentum, this pullback to build momentum to clear that level for the advance to resume. There might be more work to be done, as I've said, but again, the sell-off that I predicted is happening, and then we're looking for clues of to when the bottom will be in, and that very well could have been today at today's lows. We could, again, as I talked about, see the price oscillator and the MACD firm up here on the daily charts around the center line right here. We talked about this. We had the bullish diversions tip us off to the bottom. Again, if we have the bottom with the bottoming tail here or go back and go a little bit lower, again, I expect that we're going to firm up on the center line here with our price oscillator and our MACD, and I think that will take us above the 109,000 area up here that I've been talking about. And bottom very well could be in now. We'll be watching to see if we get more volatility or not, but I do expect the January low is going to hold, and we tested it beautifully here, rallied hard, and now we're up significantly over 4% at the moment. We'll see how we close if we give some of that back as IBIT's filling the gap fill, S&P 500, and then we'll be watching the lows to see if it's tested for a higher low or a lower low. But again, Bitcoin is attempting to carve out a bottom here, in my opinion. We're getting this sell-off and this rally is being bought, as I told you it would be. It's absolutely nailing it. So Trump confirmed that he had a conversation earlier today with Trudeau. Apparently there's going to be a second conversation. Trump is confirming that there's going to be a conversation here that's going to be starting just shortly here, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's just moments away when I'm making the video right now. So we'll see if there's more volatility, but possible Bitcoin gets another pullback for a higher low or a lower low to finish a bottom, and that's why I'm watching that gap on IBIT, and I wanted to take the time to show it to you. But again, the sell-off, I told you it would happen. It did. I told you back on Inauguration Day, and the rally into it that happened, I did. The bottom, I told you on January 13th that we were going to reach that. On January 9th and 10th, I was telling you we were going to reach that level. Bitcoin reached it on the 13th. I told you Bitcoin was going to bottom and rally off of that trend line. In all likelihood, it did. I told you about the December top, just nailing it. Go back and watch my videos, and you'll see the predictions that I've been making. I mean, it's absolutely amazing because I have good indicators. I watch the trend lines and support and resistance. Been absolutely nailing this. We'll keep you posted. I might post another video tomorrow. If we go back for another test down, post another video tomorrow. If that happens, and show you those intraday charts, a short video showing you that 4-hour chart and the 60-minute chart of IBIT. Check back to see if I do that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but again, I might do it. Check back for that. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. Follow the link, it'll take you to a secure site and you can donate any amount you want. I don't have sponsors, just a direct relationship with you. Just ask that you do what you can to help out. So try to take the time to do that if you can. I appreciate you doing that. Channels mostly make money through sponsorship. I choose not to go that route. Watch the video all the way through. Make sure you watch the video all the way through. A lot of important things coming down. Gee, surprise, surprise, Bitcoin sells off dramatically and then bottoms out, getting a higher low above the January low. Gee, who told you that was going to happen? Again, like what I told you that we were topping with this topping tail in December at the major trend lines of resistance, and we were going to get a sell-off back to support. Where did we move? Back to support. I told you we were going to move to this trend line right here. Where did we move? This trend line right here. We dropped 18%. The people that told us it wasn't going to happen, all of a sudden they get very bearish. And I told you Bitcoin bottomed with this bottoming tail right here, hitting the trend line I told you it was going to hit, nailing the turn yet again. And yet the people that told us a sell-off wasn't going to happen, then they told us, oh no, we're forming a head and shoulders. We're all going to die. Ah! And I told you we were bottoming. Because the people that told us it wasn't going to happen, a bunch of them started turning bearish. That's what usually happens. They get very bullish at the tops, very bearish at the bottom. I told you we had bottomed. I told you we were going to rally up. Bitcoin is going to go resume the rally, make new highs, and we're going to rally ahead of the presidential inauguration, which we in fact did with the inflation data that week. And we moved to a new high on Inauguration Day. We saw negative divergences begin to develop on intraday charts. Had a rally of 8%. It fizzled out. We went back. We got a lower high. We couldn't do it. And I told you again that day we're going to get a pullback to backtest the breakout of the bull flag. And I told you when everybody was saying this is a head and shoulders, I told you it evolved into a bull flag pattern. And the Bitcoin was going to end up going a whole lot higher, again, likely towards 125,000. I told you the January low was going to hold, but we were going to pull back. I told you the levels I was watching, the trend line. I told you we might even overthrow the trend line, hit the 100 period moving average, even overthrow that, and even test horizontal support. We talked about all of this before it ever happened. Back up again after I predicted the rally that we're going to get a higher low, I should say. And this pullback, which has now been 16.5%, which nailed it again. And again, those folks telling us, oh, no, up here, just like back over here at the December top. Oh, no, Bitcoin's going to just keep going. And I told you, no, it's not. It's going to backtest. I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. Very few people. Most people predict things after they already happen. You say, oh, like right here. Oh, wasn't it so obvious it would happen? They predict things after the move has already happened. I never do that. I always tell you what I think is going to happen before it happens. Like at the trend line up here on the weekly chart, we tagged it right there. The trend line right here on the daily chart, we tagged it right here. And horizontal support, I always tell you what I think. I've been making absolutely amazing calls. And you know why? Because I really don't care which way Bitcoin moves. I can tell you, hey, I think it's going higher. Yes, I do. I think Bitcoin's going to go up to 125,000. just below it or just above it. That area, that window is where I think we're headed for Bitcoin. But then I think it's going to peak, and then I think the cycle top will be in, and I think Bitcoin will begin to price in the recession and usher in a bear market. But I remain bullish on Bitcoin, but I've been predicting this pullback. So just been nailing these turns, absolutely nailing these turns. But as we were talking about the rally, going into this level, we are moving towards those major trend lines of resistance. And I told you, again, we were going to likely turn off of them and get a corrective move, which we in fact did. Just like right here, overhead resistance. We slammed into the resistance trend lines again that we turned off of right here. And I told you we were likely going to pull back and build momentum to blow on through, to blast through those levels. Are you picking up what I'm throwing down? Now, again, we may go back and test this level. This may not be done. But again, it's absolutely nailing it. I talked about the tariffs giving its concern about a trade war and on concerns about inflation. But there's a great length in detail. If you go watch my last video, I mean, I just nailed this. Now, we have moved beyond my 100 period, but we're getting a bottoming tail at it. We were down. Bitcoin was down over 6%. Bitcoin was down over 6% at the lows intraday. Right now, it's up 2.41%. Okay, it may go back and test these lows where there might be more work to be done. But I told you in my last update, last few updates, and the last one I talked about at great length of detail, to be watching for what? Be watching for what? A bottoming tail. Look at the bottoming tail here. Look at the bottoming tail over here at horizontal support. Look at the bottoming tail here. And I talked about these bottoming tails. Look at the bottoming tail we had at the first pullback right here. Look at that bottoming tail. Again, I talked about these bottoming tails. What are we getting? Oh, gee, a bottoming tail. Now, again, we may see the rally given back. Maybe we get a doji by the end of the session like we did over here, and maybe we come back and we test these lows again. We'll see what happens. But again, I told you we were going to pull back at a bottom, get a higher low, and then resume the advance. I'm looking for a bottoming process. Why do I say that? There's a gap just a little bit lower, and we still may try to hit it, but very possible Bitcoin is now bottomed here with this. And why? Again, why are we rallying back up? We sold off with the tariffs. You've got the president of Mexico caving. Those tariffs have been now postponed until March 1st. They've been postponed a month. She agreed to make changes. That's what the tariffs are for. Trump's using them as a leverage to get the Canadians and the Mexicans on board solving the border crisis. You had the Mexican president cave today. Just like, what was it, a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, we had, again, the president of Colombia not accepting a flight. Trump put emergency tariffs on him. I caved in 10 minutes. It's used as a bargaining tool for leverage, and that's what he's doing. With Trudeau, again, he met with him. I guess they had a call. Trudeau doesn't bother to try to solve this problem before the tariffs were implemented on February 1st. It's until after, then announces, that we're going to do retaliatory tariffs. Well, so what? The Canadian exports into the United States are like 87%. But if you watched my weekend video on my stock channel, you watched it, and I talked about that Mexico and Canada are going to begin to make concessions immediately. And guess what? I mean, we lasted a day and a half, and Mexico's already done so. Trudeau's next, and they got another meeting with Trump at 3 o'clock. We'll see what happens. There might be some more volatility on uncertainty with that, but listen to me. Eventually, we're going to go higher. But this concern about inflation is eventually going to be the hot topic issue once we go to new highs. And these tariffs could come back to haunt Bitcoin and the stock market later because, again, I think it's going to go in our final finale, our final phase of the blow off top, and then we're going to top, and nobody's going to believe we're going to top, but then something like this is going to happen. We saw the two issues this last week: tariffs, concerns about inflation, and the other, the DeepSeek sell-off with tech. And those are going to be the driving forces, and we're going to have an inflation freakout. But right now, this is just a preview of coming attractions, and it's giving us this wave two. So I hope you're paying attention. Tons of money to be made here. Nailing the turns. And like I said, I really don't care if Bitcoin goes up or down. I make money either way. I play the long side, I play the short side, playing these swing moves back and forth because I have good indicators. So the signals continue to nail it. And there might be more work to be done, but possibly a bottom now with this. And again, we went a little bit deeper than the 78.6 Fibonacci, and I talked about that possibility because why? Because I believe in the 100 period moving average, and I told you we might drop below it, but you're likely not going to stay below it for very long, or you might get that bottoming tail I talked about in my last update or two. But this is exciting, just thrilling, just so much money to be made with Bitcoin. And I remain bullish on Bitcoin. This is a pullback correctly predicted yet again. Hodlers, they never saw this coming, as they always never see it coming. And again, the swing moves continue to play out beautifully. And we're going to go higher. But then everybody's going to say, oh, Bitcoin, when we get to target level, and right now around 125,000, maybe it goes a little higher if we take our time reaching it, but when we get there, we're going to go, oh no, we're going to go to 250,000, 300,000, 500,000, and Bitcoin's likely going to complete the cycle top. But what beautiful opportunities here today, back over here on January 13th, the beautiful resistance, the shorting opportunity into resistance over and over. Again, the signals just continue to nail it. I love my indicators. I hope the signals help you as much as they help me, but I remain bullish on Bitcoin. Beautiful, beautiful bottoming tail looks to be developing here at my 100 period moving average. I told you there were buyers that were going to come in with this sell-off, and we are going to establish a higher low, and that's exactly what's happening. I told you what, we are going to take out this low. A lot of people said, no, that's it. Bottom's in right there. And again, these are the same people that told us the sell-off wasn't going to happen. And I told you we are going to take that low out. I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think, but just been absolutely nailing it. Ethereum was down like 13%. It's come back down to these lows right here from the summer, and it's recovered. It's now just down 4%. But again, huge warning sign. Ethereum is not moving above the 2021 highs. Bitcoin is. That's what happens surrounding tops. But pretty interesting. You know, all the recent, before this big sell-off right here, everyone was saying, oh, Ethereum, it's going to go up and make new highs. Here we go. And boom, it collapses. Huge red flag. You better be paying attention. But like I said, Bitcoin is going higher. But when it does, it's going to top out in the not too distant future. Get your red flag here with Ethereum because they're diverging from one another, as I've talked about. Now, we're hitting my other trend line with the log scaling. Remember, we bounced out the trend line with the linear from this trend line from these lows right here. Right now, if you connect this low right here and this low right here, we're bouncing off this trend line right here. I've talked about that previously, but I told you, again, we could violate the trend line on the linear scaling and go back and hit my 100 period moving average. Absolutely incredible rebound here off of that 100 period moving average in the trend line right here. If you look at the S&P 500, IBIT is doing exactly, that's a Bitcoin ETF there. It's doing exactly what the S&P is doing. Again, we had the run up, we dropped down and it formed a bear flag. IBIT did the same thing with the Bitcoin ETF. And again, coming back and back testing the bull flag. And again, it filled the gap right here. The S&P, again, still might not be done. It still might get, we do have this divergence that's developing right here, which I've been predicting from this low. We've come down and we're just getting this low, possibly a Class B divergence or just slightly higher here. But again, could see another test of this level and hit the 61.8 Fibonacci on the S&P, and IBIT could end up getting a larger Fibonacci retracement to the 78.6 Fibonacci. So again, it's just something to pay attention to if there's more work to be done. You know, the hopes right now is, oh, Mexico caved and the tariffs are going away, and maybe Trudeau those things too later today with Trump. And there could be volatility surrounding that. Oh, it didn't work out, or you know, and then in the next few days, again, we see a bottom here, and you know, by tomorrow or something. Didn't get it yet already. And again, I've been predicting that we're going to get this ABC move with the S&P. But look at IBIT compared to the S&P 500. Again, the lower high, the bear flag, the back test, and the pullback here on the 60-minute chart. Look at IBIT. Here on the 15-minute chart, it's moving back to go back and try to fill today's gap. S&P is doing the same thing. Now, if you look at IBIT, The IBIT is the Bitcoin ETF. If you look at it, it's doing the exact same thing the S&P 500 is doing. Again, we had the January 13th bottom. They both peaked in December, as I correctly predicted they would. Predicted the pullback, called the bottom here. Look at the bottoming tail on IBIT. You ran up and you got a rising wedge. S&P did the same thing, where you broke the trend line, you came back, you got a throwback back up, gapped lower with the DeepSeek Selloff to the 200. You went back up, you filled the gap, and you formed a bear flag. The S&P did the exact same thing. They are moving in lockstep together. We got the DeepSeek sell-off. Now we get the sell-off with the tariffs. Another gap, and now we're coming back to fill that gap. We were down 6%. Now we're up Bitcoin, and we're coming into break even right here because we had sold off over the weekend on Bitcoin further when IBIT was closed. But again, very well could have bottomed. We got a hollow red candlestick right here. Again, I wanted to show you this because, again, we do have this gap fill down here. It still might get filled if there's more work to be done. But again, it very well could be that we've now put in a bottom. And again, buyers coming back in, hopes that the tariffs will be resolved. But if Trump talks to Trudeau later today, which is within the hour here, I believe they're supposed to talk again. And if they talk and Trudeau doesn't concessions yet, there could be more volatility. But again, he's likely going to make concessions very, very soon. Be watching to see what happens if there is more volatility. But I'm looking at Bitcoin again. I told you the sell-off was going to happen. The question now is it done here? Do we go just a little bit lower? But I want to show you this gap fill area on the Bitcoin ETF. We don't have to fill it right now, but we may do that if there's more work to be done with Bitcoin. Let me show you the 4-hour chart with Bitcoin. This is the 60-minute chart of IBIT, Bitcoin ETF. So I'm watching to see, does a divergence develop here? I'm watching the same thing on the Bitcoin 4-hour chart. Now the RSI on the 4-hour chart, and here's the 4-hour chart I showed you. Again, we had this fake head and shoulders pattern. Everybody's telling us, oh no, Bitcoin's going to crash. And I told you, it's bottoming out because it evolved into a bull flag. We came beyond the back test of the bull flag, and again, testing this low, getting a larger Fibonacci retracement, allowing Bitcoin to test its 100-period moving average. So again, the bottom might be in for Bitcoin now, but there might be more work to be done if a divergence does in fact form right here on the RSI and on the MACD. We have this low right here, and I told you to be watching for a divergence here to see if it developed. That's why I was telling you that selling wasn't done with this low right here. But again, we moved to a new low, so you might get a brand new fresh divergence. We don't have to form a divergence. Okay, you don't have to do that, but you can. So again, if there's more work to be done, or if more volatility on uncertainty, they have this meeting, but then Trudeau doesn't make any concessions whatsoever, so Trump keeps it on, and in a few days he comes to his senses, or whatever the case may be. Could have more volatility surrounding the tariffs a little bit. This bottom very well could be the bottom, though, as, again, we've come very, very close to the low. I'm just pointing out that gap on IBIT, that if we did test this low again, that would be a level that I would be watching very, very closely. When we formed this divergence, we hit this low right here, and then we rose up and stalled up to 50. That's where we're coming right now in the cloud. And then we came back and we tested it. We got that bullish divergence. We could see something like that happen here. We don't have to have it happen, but I wanted to make you aware of that because we could see the bullish divergence on the 60-minute chart of IBIT as well. If that gap fills, MACD turning up, you could see a bullish divergence develop. Again, the MACD, remember I talked about a possible divergence developing here, but we went deeper back to that 100 period we've talked about. If we got a deeper sell-off back to test the 100 period, so the MACD moved to a new low. Again, it could form a divergence before all is said and done. Again, very similar over here as we talked about with the RSI. You go up and then you turn right back down. Could see something like that happen. And again, very, very quickly, counting the uncertainty with Canada right now. And as I'm making the video, maybe there's news about it already. I don't know. But within the hour that I'm making the video right here, Trump is supposed to talk to Trudeau on the phone again. It happens, but again, don't be surprised if we see more volatility around this stuff. And again, Trudeau's been making bad decisions, tried to call Trump and get this resolved long before the tariffs began on February 1st. He knew they were coming and he didn't even bother to call him, try to fix the problem. He makes more bad choices still see more volatility around this. But I'm just telling you, look, either we have a bottom here or we're going to go just a little bit lower. But again, the bottom I told you I was looking for above the January peak is now carving out, maybe is now complete here with Bitcoin, or maybe we pull back and get a higher low on Bitcoin or a higher low on IBIT. So just watching that. But there's possibility of a divergence is still in play here. So don't rule that out.